Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with GreenSky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
It's week 11 now of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel and Vince McKee here. And tell you what, Vince, it feels like we split almost half of the weeks this season so far. We split once again. So you still hold a 2-game lead here at the moment. So still neck and neck, still close. I'm not able to make up any ground, and we're basically where we left off last week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the thing about it is, too, it's, the tiebreakers always head-to-head meetings. Without us doing the college picks this year, the traditional tiebreakers head-to-head. I'm going to go back and look at it, but like you just said, man, with the honest exception of your 5-0 week, my 4-1 week, we've had a bunch of either 2-0s or 1-1s or splits. And for the most part, I want to say, I think we're in week 11 of picks. So I would say out of the first 10 weeks, I would venture to say we've split at least 4 times, if not more.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to go back. I want to throw this out here before we get started. I love the Buffalo Bills. Well, I shouldn't say love. Going into the season, all right, I thought there were 3 teams in the AFC that were going to be very good, very dangerous, besides Kansas City. Okay, so who's going to challenge Kansas City to go to the Super Bowl to represent the AFC? Now, I picked 3 teams that I think everybody would agree upon: the Chargers, the Bills, and the Bengals. And if the playoffs were to start today, none of those 3 teams would even be in the playoffs this year. That's how crazy the AFC has been to this point. Obviously, we have a long way to go, but, Cole, you're the one who always asks me all the questions. I just kind of wanted to start a little opposite this week by asking you a question. Would you have ever thought that at this point in the season that Buffalo, Cincinnati, and the Chargers either a losing record or 500 at this point?
Well, it is a little surprising because they're all 3 teams that I had making the playoffs this year. I knew that the Chargers were the team that have bit us the last couple of years, but they have the talent to make it to the playoffs. As for Buffalo, I felt like they had a great shot to win their division, and I still think they have a good shot to win their division. All they have to do is, regroup, regather basically what they have and put together better offensive game plans. So I don't think Miami's unbeatable or anything like that. So I think they could still catch them. Cincinnati's still in that race as well. So it's a long ways from being over for those teams. So maybe a little surprised with how the records are, but I think it's more of just a testament to how the AFC has been and how it's been just crazy in general. There's only 2 teams that are really way at the bottom in the Titans, and trying to think of who else is at the very bottom. But there's literally only 2 teams in the AFC who are all the way down there and actually struggling to find wins. So everybody else is really, 4 or 5 wins and up. So honestly, I think a lot can change. Yes, you're right. The Patriots and the Titans, they're the only 2 that really sit down there. So I think it's interesting. That's for sure.
Well, we got some picks to do. I'm excited to pick them with you, and we're going to end up talking about one of the teams that used to be in the basement that is slowly crawling out of it, but we'll get to that in a bit.
So we'll go to Thursday Night Football to get this thing started. It is an AFC North matchup, one that will really give some huge implications this year of who can potentially win this division. The Ravens sit at the top. Of course, if the Bengals win and then the Browns win their game, then the Browns would be sitting at the top of the division. Of course, if the Bengals win just in general, it's a good opportunity for the Bengals to go on a fast track maybe to finding their way back to the top. So there's a lot that's up for grabs here on Thursday, and we're only just a little bit over midway through the season, not even quite to Thanksgiving, but last weekend of games before we hit those Thanksgiving games, and we have a really, really fun one here on Thursday night, and that's a good thing after we've had a couple games that haven't been great on Thursday night. So I'm going to say this. The Ravens are not as good as what some people make them out to be, and you and I have been on the same page there. But I also don't think they're as bad as I think you've kind of talked about them a little bit. I know you said you've been saying for a while, you're like, I'm not big on the Ravens. I don't trust the Ravens. I'm probably a little bit higher on them right now than you are. But the thing is that can change in an instant, like we've talked about. It just depends upon the health of Lamar Jackson is really how that team's going to operate and go. Right now, he's healthy. If he stays healthy, I think they'll be okay. Cincinnati, they're starting to get into a rhythm. They're starting to hit more of a stride. Burrow's playing well. Now, Higgins and Chase had been banged up a little bit here recently again, so they've got at least some wide receivers. Again, they're trying to find a way to get healthy again. But I think Cincinnati's at least taking strides in the right direction. They have to go on the road, though, to Baltimore. A Baltimore team that wants to bounce back after, for them, a shocking loss to the Cleveland Browns. And it's something we'll talk about later, but the Browns set a record, the longest a team has trailed in NFL history, and then go on to win that game. They trailed for over 59 and a half minutes of game action. I mean, they went down in the first 10 seconds there of the first half because of that pick six, and then they didn't take the lead until it hit triple zeros on the field goal at the end for Hopkins. So the Ravens are trying to find a way to bounce back, get a win when it felt like a win was taken out of their grasps, out of their clutches, and now they have to go up against Cincinnati. I think it's going to be a tough test. It's going to be a close ball game, but ultimately, because the Ravens lost to the Browns this past week, I'm going to say that Baltimore, they win at home 24-23. Very, very close game. But in the end, Baltimore does get it done and stay atop the division.
How crazy is it that, 4 days ago, a lot of people were talking about Baltimore possibly being a Super Bowl contender and the best team in the AFC, maybe the best team in football with the way they were blowing out good teams, completely blowing out the Detroit Lions, blowing out the Seattle Seahawks. Really, I wouldn't say the Seahawks are the cream of the NFC, but two of the better NFC teams this year. And then they come in and they start blowing out the Browns. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, maybe I have underestimated this team. But then they start to break things down. And the one thing they cannot seem to do, and they still have Keenan Mitchell, I believe his name is, and Gus Edwards, but they still cannot run between the tackles or run dives or stunts or even off tackle very well. Most of their offense still, even to this point, is still revolving around what can Lamar Jackson create, for lack of better terms. I'm not afraid of OBJ. He had one catch for 40 yards, had to dance around like a fool. Hey, you got your touchdown. Didn't do anything else the rest of the day. Now, here's the thing, though. It's wild to think within 4 days of a stretch that the Ravens could go from contending from the AFC Championship and the prime Super Bowl contender and all those things to possibly, and this is just possibly, 2 divisional losses within 4 days, which would put them in third after the Pittsburgh-Cleveland finish coming up, on Sunday. Could possibly even slide them all the way down the third if that happens. They have so much to lose if they drop this game to the Bengals. But here's the thing. I think the Bengals are snake bit this year. They can, much like Buffalo, you talked about Buffalo to start the show, the Bengals can't seem to get out of their own way. They get a little bit of momentum, maybe get a little overconfident, and then drop a game they shouldn't. Houston's a good team. The Houston Texans are a lot better than I think any of us expected. Okay, I'll say that. But there's no way the Bengals should have dropped that game at home, especially the way they did, there at the end, just kind of letting it slip away. There's something wrong in Cincinnati. I don't know what it is. It's not a Super Bowl hangover because they didn't go to the Super Bowl last year. Maybe we could have said that about last year's team. But whatever the case may be, Cincinnati just seems to be a little bit off this season. Baltimore's dangerous. They have to win. I feel like now more than ever, their backs are up against the wall. They're probably embarrassed. They're probably angry. I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one. But, as I always say, there's certain games each week that I pick, and I say, okay, confidence points. I'd give this game a ton of confidence points. This one, no. Couldn't tell you who's going to win. The only reason I'm going with Baltimore, obviously, they have a much better defense than Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland saw it firsthand. Want to shout them out. That's a hell of a defense in Baltimore, a lot better than I thought. That being the case, should be able to put a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. I agree with you, too. I think it's going to actually be a lower scoring game. I don't expect either team to get over 30 points. You said, what, 24-21, I believe?
24-23. One point game.
Wow. Okay, yeah. I'm going to say something probably close to that as well. But in the end, I'd say Baltimore by about 2 to 4 points.
Yeah. Fair. No, I will say this. I do think Gus Edwards needs a little bit of credit. I think Gus is actually a good runner in between the tackles. So I don't question their running ability in between the tackles with him. But they do have the speed with Mitchell. You saw the burst from him, which was a nice thing. But as for just a consistent ground game, I don't know if it's that consistent. It's definitely not the strongest out there. A lot still is run by Lamar Jackson, and he's dictating kind of how that offense goes. And when he's quiet and hits a little slump or a slow period, the offense just doesn't move the ball nearly to the level as where if Watson's having a bad stretch, the Browns can run the ball behind that offensive line with the multiple running backs that they have. It's just a little bit of a different way that they're composed, but still a pretty good team. And you're right, their defense is good. I don't think Brown's good, but it's still one of the better defenses out there in the NFL. So we go to Sunday Night Football, though. And this one, not a division matchup, not as good of a matchup as what we're going to see on Thursday night. But that being said, credit to the Denver Broncos. They did win against the Buffalo Bills. It's a Buffalo Bills team that has more talent than the Broncos team, but in the end, ultimately, the Broncos, they got it done, and they actually played well, especially in that final stanza, that final stretch. Russell Wilson was starting to look more like Russell Wilson of old, actually pretty quick running. The little shovel passes as well to the running backs worked out a couple times. He was doing a good job distributing that football. Javonte Williams was getting involved. I thought in general, they were doing some good things. Sean Payton's making that team better. It was going to take some work. It's been an uphill climb, but they're making it and they're improving. And now they're taking on a Vikings team that have exceeded our expectations in a weak NFC, mind you, but they're exceeding our expectations, and Josh Dobbs is playing well, having just stepped foot there. Really didn't even have much of a chance to look at the playbook, but he's so smart, right? Yep. He's getting things done the last 2 weeks. So now, matter of can the Vikings continue to win now going on the road to Denver, Vince?
No. So I cannot wait to do this. I am picking the Denver Broncos. So not only do they make a great coaster for my coffee cup, I'm so excited to be a Denver Broncos fan right now. And here's why. They're playing with house money. Nothing to lose. You're not going to win the division, but you don't want to be the worst team in the league either, right? A few weeks ago, you lose, I think it was 70-0 or 70-3 or something wild against the Miami Dolphins. Then you lose against the hapless New York Jets, which, man, do they stink. The fact that the Jets have 4 wins so far this season blows my mind. There's a couple teams this year that I can't figure out how they have so many wins. The Raiders being one of them. And their opponents this week, 6-4, the Minnesota Vikings. Holy smokes. So I'm actually going to pick the team with less wins. I just don't know how Minnesota's doing this. I'm not impressed by Josh Dobbs. I think the guy's a career backup. I wouldn't really be fooled by what we're seeing these last couple weeks. I just don't see it. Now, we'll see how it turns out this weekend, but 18 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. Russell Wilson is quietly having one of his better seasons. He got off to a slow start. Him and Sean Payton really did not click the first couple weeks of the year. They're starting to get together. And who else are they going to give the ball to a little bit more often now? Javonte Williams. What have I been saying for the last couple of years? get Williams the ball. There you go. The proof is in the pudding. Again, I'm not going to go ahead. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth. Not going to say anything crazy like they're going to go on some wild run and make the playoffs or win the division or anything like that. I still don't think they are. But this is a team right now that's fun to watch. They're playing with confidence. They beat Kansas City. They beat Buffalo back-to-back weeks. Yeah, there was a bye in the middle, but still, those are two huge victories. Now they're at home. Why can't they beat the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, come on. Let's go with it. Denver Broncos. I'm excited to make this pick. You can probably tell just by the sound of my voice. It's not often I get to pick them, let alone on our show. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I can tell. I have to say,
dude.
though, I'm going to disagree with you. They are not a fun team to watch. I really don't enjoy watching Denver much this year. Offensively, they're boring. I expect low-scoring games. They're not going to get a whole lot done. Russell Wilson, although I gave him his props, again, his days have been numbered. I like Javonte Williams. Of course, they didn't get to give him the ball last year because of his injury, but he's come back. He's bounced back well. Just keep giving that guy the rock.
Mm-hmm.
Cortland Sutton's a good receiver. Can't stand Jerry Jeudy. I don't think he's that good. Well overrated. So offensively, though, I don't trust Denver to ever really put up more than 30 points.
Okay.
I don't know if they really can do that at all. Defensively, they have a decent defense, but it's not the best defense out there. It's not top 10. It's maybe middle of the pack. So if you have a middle of the pack defense, an offense that you can't trust to put up 30 points, is it a sustainable brand of football? No, they really don't have a chance of going much of anywhere this year. And even though they got the win against Buffalo, that's more on Buffalo and them reeling in some bad offensive play calling and the turnovers than it is actually a testament to Denver. Here's the thing, Minnesota, no surprise. I don't like their defense. I don't trust their defense. I think their defense will get gashed by most teams, but they're doing enough offensively to put up points. Even without Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Those guys have all stepped up. Josh Dobbs coming in. He is a smart player. Now, he's kind of borderline between backup and bottom tier starter, right? He's a guy who, if the league is in a good quarterback situation, there's no turnover, certainly he's going to be a backup. But he's so smart, and I think as he's become more of a vet the last couple of years, he's almost been able to settle in, and you're seeing his play elevate. He's actually made a case for himself in his time with Arizona and his time now with Minnesota about potentially for some of these teams that might be having a holdover year next year before trying to get a quarterback, or, maybe they run into an issue where they're going to have a guy out for a while. He could find himself in a starting role again, at least for next year. Now, I'm not going to say that Josh Dobbs is going to be a starter 6-7 years down the road, but for this 1, 2, 3 year window, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as a starting quarterback for quite a while in the NFL, maybe as a journeyman, which he is right now, but I can see him being a starter for quite a while. And he's doing a good job. Here's what I'm going to say. As much as I'm a little critical on the Vikings defensively, critical on the Broncos, Minnesota's going to go on the road and they're going to win this game. Honestly, that NFC, again, not that good. So somehow Minnesota, a team that I don't really have a ton of faith in, just behind some good coaching, good offensive play, they're going to make the playoffs this year. That's the way it's trending. They're going to be able to sneak in. Will they do anything? No, they won't. But Minnesota is going to take down the Denver Broncos, and everybody's going to see what the real Denver Broncos actually are this year. And not that.
Breaking my heart over here, Cole. Breaking my heart. I haven't had hope in my team in years.
Sorry. I gotta strip that down here again with the Broncos love.
I will say this. I think it's kind of funny when, Minnesota, man, what was it, less than 4 weeks ago, right after Justin Jefferson got hurt, we're talking about, I know we were texting about it for a little bit, but I know we were talking about it too, about a possible Kirk Cousins trade out of Minnesota, them just tanking the season. And now instead, without Kirk Cousins, without Justin Jefferson, suddenly, as you said, they're 6-4, right in the playoff on the NFC. Gotta give them credit. If they do end up winning that division, which I'd be shocked because I don't see them surpassing Detroit. but I do see them possibly getting a wild card if they beat Denver, because I think that momentum's going to carry over. If that happens, then you're talking about possibly coach of the year out there in Minnesota. So yeah, a lot of fun to watch. This game, like we said, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, was looking hideous for a Sunday night football game. Like, how in the world is this a Sunday night football game? But now with the role that both these teams are on, it's going to be, I'm excited to see it. So our first split of the week.
Our first one. We could certainly have another one here on Monday night. It is the rematch of this past year's Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, you and I both picked them to win the Super Bowl over the Eagles. They did end up taking down Philadelphia. Now you have Philadelphia, who's coming off of a bye week. You have Kansas City, who's coming off of a bye week. So they both had time to get healthy, time to prepare for each other before this heavyweight clash. An Eagles team that only has 1 loss and a Chiefs team that has 2 losses. Both are destined to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of, will they both be the number 1 seeds in the AFC and the NFC respectively. I'm going to say this. It's going to be a little bit of a flip of the script. Going to Arrowhead, Philadelphia is going to win this game. Ultimately, they're seeking revenge. I know it's not to the same level, right? A regular season game isn't necessarily getting revenge fully over the Kansas City Chiefs because the Chiefs have the rings. They have the Super Bowl trophy. But it's still a good moral boost for your season. It'd be a huge win for them on the road. I think that they're just going to be good enough. I think they have a better defense than the Chiefs have, even though I think Mahomes is the better quarterback of the 2 quarterbacks. There's still plenty of weapons on that offense there for the Eagles. I think offensive line-wise, I think that on the interior of the Chiefs' offensive line, they're good. The tackles, I question them a little bit this year, whereas I feel that whole offensive line of the Eagles is pretty solid. So on paper, the Eagles may be a little bit better here right now, and I think that on paper they may have even been still a little bit better than the Super Bowl. It was just a matter of I felt like it was going to go the way of Kansas City, and it did. But there you go, Philadelphia. They get really their revenge that they've been looking for since February. And I look forward to this game on Monday night because it feels like sometimes Monday nights we don't always get the best games compared to like Sunday. But this one is a heavyweight clash, that's for sure.
Also, amazing game for Monday Night Football. So far this season, Philadelphia has been the better football team. Something about Kansas City this year has just been a tick off. It's a little bit off in Kansas City. Can't really put my finger on it. Mahomes' interception rate is a little up. Travis Kelce's been banged up. But here's the thing, and here's the reason why I'm actually going to pick differently than you. So you guessed right, we are picking different again. I'm going to take the Chiefs. Really right now for the sole reason that I have confidence in Andy Reid's ability coming off of a bye week. Kansas City, and really Andy Reid in general, has one of the highest winning percentages coming off of a bye. That being the case, going to go with Kansas City, but certainly so. This is the kind of game, really, I mean, this could definitely be a Super Bowl preview yet again. Philadelphia, I actually think Philadelphia looks better this year than they did last year. Last year, there was a couple wins that were like, oh, wow, we're surprised they got that win. But this year, man, like they just seem to be a little bit more dominant. They had that close one against Washington. They've had some scares along the way. So we're going to see how it pans out. But this is one hell of a game. I think if it comes, like I said in the Super Bowl, if it comes down to the better coach and comes down to the better quarterback, I have to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to roll that dice one more time. I really don't even think it's that much of a roll of the dice. Also, I don't see Kansas City losing 2 primetime games in one season at home. They lost the season opener hosting Detroit. I'd be surprised if they do it again, let alone coming off of a bye week.
Well, the Eagles were dominant for the most of the season last year, though. Don't forget it was only the last couple weeks of the year where they started to stumble and have their hiccups, and then they got it going again once they got to the playoffs. They were nearly perfect through like the first 13, 14 weeks of the year, and then the last couple of weeks, it was like, this is not the Eagles team that we're used to seeing. They're really in that same type of a rhythm. They've had a couple close games, that scare there from the Commanders, but they ultimately won. Of course, they only have the 1 loss, and it's still an Eagles team that's really good. We'll see if they can keep it together and not stumble later in the year, but I think this could really be a nice step for them to keep things going and to not falter against a talented Kansas City team. Would be interested, as you mentioned, though, in seeing Kansas City lose another primetime game at home. That's not typical for them. It would certainly be an interesting story. The likelihood might be a little bit unlikely, but Philadelphia, they might have a good chance in that one. Well,
I think they have more than a good chance.
Yeah.
I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, one possession ball game. That's why I say 34-27 Eagles. But I'm looking forward to that one on Monday night for sure. So
Yes,
we have actually picked 2 games different already through 3 games so far. So we're going to move to our upset picks here, and I'm going to have you start off, but we'll see if we're different on a couple picks as well, because we split a bunch. If we have an odd number of games that we pick differently, then there's no chance of us splitting this week. So will we have the same upset picks, Vince?
Well, we'll see. The thing about it is this was the kind of week where when you looked at it, we have that rule where Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, Browns game, all have to go ahead straight up picks. It doesn't matter home or away, favorite underdog, right? And, you look at it, and I looked at it like this, like, my goodness, Minnesota, if I had to pick an underdog, Minnesota on Sunday night, easily could have made a case for the Vikings like you did. Monday Night Football, underdog, Eagles, easily could have made a case for the Eagles. And if we were in a situation where we had to pick multiple underdogs each week, no matter what night of the week they were playing, I think for sure I would have took the Vikings, and for sure I would have took the Eagles. Situations like that kind of jump off the page. The Thursday nighter as well, Baltimore being at home, they're the favorite. Obviously, a lot of people think Cincinnati's going to win. I bet you the betting line is going to be heavy on Cincinnati. So there you go. That's 3 underdogs right there that if we were forced to have to say pick 5 underdogs a week, no matter what night they were playing, I would have literally took, without even thinking twice, Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Philadelphia. Also, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, Browns, Steelers. Browns being a favorite in that game could easily make a case for the Steelers. So it just happened to be one of those weeks where a lot of underdog picks that I probably would have made in a normal week, if, say, they weren't playing on a certain night, I wouldn't have thought twice I would have picked that team. But, it is what it is. So, all right, I've talked around it long enough. So there was a couple games to me that jumped off the page, but it's just not players I could trust. So I'm actually going to give one away. And before I actually get to the upset, I badly thought maybe the Chargers. I can't stand the Chargers right now. They're 3-point favorites on the road in Green Bay, but Green Bay has been so bad. It's like, it's so difficult, right? But again, as much as I would love to take the Packers at home, cold weather, maybe we'll turn things around for them. I just don't see that happening. Love Justin Herbert. Can't believe the guy has not demanded a trade yet with that defense and that head coach. Just wasting his talent. So the upset pick I did take was the Rams, and that's because the Rams are playing at home. They're getting healthy. Matthew Stafford, is questionable, but he'll probably be back this week. I love Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp's back any day now. They have a lot of guys starting to get healthy on that team. Still wish they had their running back. He's still going to be out for at least another 2 weeks. But the Rams, just like I said with Denver, they're obviously not going to win the division, not even close. They're not going to go to the playoffs, but it's still not this horrible, horrible team despite that record. I like their head coach. I'm actually going to go with the Rams, and I'm going to double up on it by saying this. Seattle did not impress me in their win against the Browns. They had one really good first quarter, and that was kind of until then when Cleveland pretty much handed them the game on the interception. Okay? Seattle then goes into Baltimore, gets blown out. They won a close game last week. I apologize. At the top of my head, I forget who they played. But they have still not really dominated anybody all season long. All that being said, I feel comfortable with this upset pick. And I think the Rams at home might actually pull this off. So my official pick is the Rams. And I gave you guys a freebie there, even though it's not an upset pick. Just write it down now. I took the Chargers.
Yeah, I took the Chargers as well. It was a tempting one, but the Packers have been so bad that I think the Chargers should win that game. I went with Seattle. They won that close ball game against the Commanders this past weekend. And then now they're taking on the Rams. And I think in the division there, that's a Rams team that they've had injury issues as well. They've been bitten by that bug. And the Seahawks are a better team than what most people give them credit for. I think Geno and those receivers are good enough. Kenneth Walker's a good running back. And defensively, they've actually really improved against the run this year. And I don't know if the Rams are going to be good enough to just go to the air consistently against that secondary either. So ultimately, I have Seattle winning that one. Most of the upsets I picked, right, were those primetime games, like Vince talked about. I took the Vikings. I took the Eagles. So where do I go with this pick? And there was one that I don't feel great about it, but at the same time, I think it has a good chance of being an upset, and it's my official upset pick here this week. As bad as they are, the Tennessee Titans will beat the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Tennessee's not good this year. I don't trust them. Still okay defensively. I think they have decent pieces. I think Vrabel's a good coach. I don't trust Will Levis at quarterback. That offense really is struggling this year. But they're going up against a Jacksonville team that they were dismantled by the San Francisco 49ers. And they struggled. Things were falling apart. They almost couldn't line up offensively because they were just rattled. And that's a team that they've had some big wins this year. They've had some good wins. I think they're a good team, but they're not a great team. They should be the team to win the AFC South. I'd still say they do. But the thing is, can they deal with the pressure of Houston getting closer and closer and closer and hearing all the noise and them lurking? Mm-hmm. Houston's got an easy game against the Cardinals. They should easily win that one with the way that they've been playing. So I think that Jacksonville, maybe if they're just not fully recovered from this past weekend against the 49ers, they might find the Titans catching them sleeping a little bit here and catching them at a time where they're beginning to struggle. And they're hitting a little bit of a skid, a little bit of a slide downward when it comes to their record. So I also saw, last thing on the weather report I saw was that there was supposedly going to be rain for that game, which I mean, that pretty much means if you're the Titans, you have to give that rock to Derrick Henry. So can you stop Derrick Henry if he's then carrying the load for, 20 plus touches in a game? He's still a good running back, and I still think he could shoulder the load at least for a game against the Jaguars here. So ultimately, I say the Titans, they win this one. Jacksonville picks up another loss. They're still going to be sitting in that number one spot in the AFC South, but the Houston Texans will just get closer and closer, nipping at their heels. And in that tight AFC race, the Jaguars are going to have to start to sweat a little bit and find a way to turn it up in the coming weeks after that in order to really secure their spot in the playoffs, or else things could really get out of control for them. But ultimately, I think they lose this week.
So if Jacksonville loses this week, it's going to drop them to 6-4. We both expect the Texans to be able to beat Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. So the Texans would go to 6-4. They'd actually be tied. So they would be tied with 7 games to go. And then I think it gets really interesting and really fun in that AFC South. I have to agree with you there. I'm taking Jacksonville strictly because I believe Trevor Lawrence, he's fully healthy here. At least that's the way it appears. Their team seems to be routinely getting better each week. I figure like last week was just more than anything a stumbling block. I don't know if anybody was able to beat the San Francisco 49ers last weekend, especially when you look at the new additions on that defense. They came out charging. I don't know if the Jaguars knew what to expect. They looked lost. I don't know if how many highlights you've seen from that game, but Jacksonville actually kind of looks lost and confused, like quite a bit. There was a rumor out there, that somebody got picked up on the audio today of saying, "Hey, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what's going on. Where was I supposed to be?" So
it was the linebacker for the 49ers, Fred Warner, said because as Lawrence was trying to move a guy, he basically said they don't know what they're doing, and somebody says, "You're right." Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that part of the story. That's even funnier.
But most people think it was a sarcastic statement. But at the same time, is there some truth to that where they didn't know where they were lining up? I don't know. But that's what was picked up on the audio.
Well, that's tremendous, But regardless, a lot of crazy things happened in football last weekend. But I think we went. I I think I went like 6-8 or something, or 7-7. I mean, those picks were rough. You probably said it at the top of the show.
7-7.
Yeah, 7-7. It was a weird week all the way around.
Mhm.
College football was like the only thing that was normal last weekend. Saw some upsets in high school football. And then my goodness, I'll say it again. The NFL was so hard to predict last week. So again, kind of moving past the upset picks, I just feel confident that Jacksonville will be able to get it back together. But I do like what I'm seeing out of Will Levis. I know you've had your reservations about him. We'll see how it goes. Is he the guy moving forward? I don't know. They're probably going to be picking top 5 to top 10 at least. They'll have a choice at quarterback if they want one.
They will. I'll tell you what, though. There's a team that we're about to talk about who I think they're set at quarterback as much as everybody gripes here and there, and that's the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, they're trying to get revenge against the Pittsburgh Steelers after that loss in week 2 where you lost Nick Chubb, and play that we consider a dirty play, and some people say no, it's just a football play. But regardless, it's an opportunity to go back against the Steelers team, and obviously you want more of a good, clean game. But when does a game with the Pittsburgh Steelers ever become a good, clean game? It doesn't. So expect that it's going to be tough. I expect hopefully no severe injuries, but I wouldn't be surprised if both teams walk out with at least some injuries on each side, because it is going to be a tough, hard-nosed, bruising battle, I'm sure, against the Steelers, a team that offensively, they don't have a whole lot. Pickett hasn't been great this year. Not even close to the word great. Honestly, he's been poor to, at best, average at times. And when he's been average, they've been able to maybe piece together enough drives, get enough points to end up winning games because their defense has bailed them out. Jaylen Warren has now really moved into that starting running back role. He's now getting a slight bit over 50% of the touches here now. Najee, again, still be part of the mix. So you see that really use of both running backs at this point. But George Pickens, he's been frustrated with Pickett and Canada and the offense, voiced his frustrations. They did get Deontay Johnson back. Pat Freiermuth, he's been out on the IR. Question is, can they actually get the passing game going against this Browns defense? And even though the Browns defense they have some injuries, right? We'll see if Ward can go. We'll see if really they're healthy for the most part. But the guys who stepped up for Cleveland against the Ravens, they were needed, right? They got it done. They did what they needed to do. Now going up against the Steelers, I don't know if Pittsburgh can move the ball against them. The big thing is just, can the Browns offense not turn the ball over against the Steelers? Because the Steelers, they got 14 defensive points in that week 2 matchup. So if you can prevent their defense from getting any points, then if you're the Browns, you should easily win this game. I expect it to be a defensive battle because of these two defenses, but I have the Browns winning this one 20-10, getting the job done, continuing to advance, improving their record, because the Steelers team, they've been blessed with a pretty easy schedule so far, and they've managed to win like every single game they've had that was a one-score game. It's been ridiculous.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I believe that the Browns' biggest enemy in this is the short field, okay? And I'm sure people out there are probably saying, what is he talking about? Of course. Well, no, here's what I'm saying, okay? And Cole, you had it right just now. When you look back at the last time these two teams played, Pittsburgh scored 14 points defensively, okay? We look at just different situations all season long. That Seattle game, same deal. Maybe the Seahawks didn't have defensive touchdowns, but they were getting the ball in unbelievable spots because we were turning it over to them.
Mm-hmm.
Saw it numerous times. We saw it on the touchdown that lost them the game against Seattle. We saw it earlier in the first quarter. My point is this. Most of the touchdowns, and I'm going to go back and research it and get an exact number, but I'd be willing to say, Cole, over 50% of the points scored on the Browns this year were either defensive touchdowns or touchdowns set up by turnovers, points off of turnovers. You look at those two numbers, and that could cripple you. Don't give this Pittsburgh Steelers team, which isn't very good, I'm sorry, they're just not on offense. Don't give them free points. If you could refrain from doing that, you could win this game. That has to be the biggest thing they need to preach this week. I don't care if it's the most boring game we've ever seen and the Browns win 14-10. It doesn't matter. Don't turn the ball over. Don't give them those short fields. You know, my heart went out to Myles Garrett, you know, and I've been more critical of him than I think any other Browns player over the years as a fan, right? Knowing how good the guy is, but knowing how much better he could be in certain areas. But my heart goes out to Myles Garrett this past weekend, and I'll tell you why. Because in that game in the second half against Baltimore, in the most pivotal moment at the time, the Browns are only down by a touchdown. You think they're going to get the ball back after Garrett gets back-to-back sacks. So Garrett gets a sack and a half. Baltimore has to punt. All right, everybody's thinking, oh, man, here we go. Cleveland's going to get the ball back. They're going to have a chance to tie the game. We all know what happens, the muff punt. Now the defense, after doing a phenomenal job to get Jackson and them off the field, they have to come back out again. And this was right after, you know, Garrett has the sack chain on and all that stuff, comes back out, and then the Browns get stops again. They stop him. They sack Jackson. They rush him out of the pocket. They cause a holding call. They're working their butts off that defense, and then you get two ridiculous calls, both good calls, both good penalties. Browns committed 2 fouls, 2 penalties.
First one was iffy.
Holdings.
The first holding was iffy. The second one was definitely holding on JOK.
Yeah, it's like you saw it in, you know, Myles Garrett's face to that touchdown. He was in the background. They kind of panned to him as the running back came in for the touchdown, and he just had his hands on his hips, just shaking his head like exhausted. You know what I mean? The fact that the Browns – go back and watch it. The fact that the Browns came back from that, after that happened, I thought that was it. I thought for sure, I'm like, well, there it is. They're done. And the fact that the Browns scored, I think it was 13 points in the next 3 minutes or something crazy, you know, just incredible, right? My whole point is this. The Browns are better than Pittsburgh. I think that's just a fact of this season thus far, right? But you cannot allow a coach as good as Mike Tomlin and a defense as good as that Pittsburgh defense is. I'm telling you, they are lights out. They're damn good. Don't let them in the game. Don't let them have those opportunities or you will lose. Now, I'm going to say 2 more things, both of them positive. This was the win Deshaun Watson needed to have, and he had it. That first half was about as bad as we've seen him. He came back out, played on an injured ankle in the second half, and lit it up by making smart passes. Stefanski put him in a position to win. That's the biggest difference there. They called plays in that second half that put him in good positions. Now I'm going to make one more point here, and this is it. If they win this week if they beat Pittsburgh, all right, now we don't know what's going to happen on Thursday night with Baltimore and Cincinnati. We both picked Baltimore, but who knows what actually happens. I still feel, even if Baltimore wins, which I think they will, that if you look at the rest of the season, look at these opponents that are left for both teams, okay? Cleveland, we're already through the toughest stretch of our schedule after this week. After this, you have the Bears and the Jets. Both of those teams are horrible. The Jets, I'm so sick of them, having to watch them every single week. It's making my skin crawl. They can't score a touchdown. I find that to be amazing. Jacksonville, which we already talked about, who knows how they're going to be. And then you travel to Cincinnati, that should be tough. Houston, you travel to Denver and the Rams. Okay, so looking at the remaining Cleveland Browns schedule, I see at least 6 wins. I just do. I think they have a hell of a shot at finishing at 12-5 this season. Definitely 11-6. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll compete for the division. But you look at what the Ravens have left this year, and they have some very, very tough games, you know, coming up. They still have to play the Chargers and Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. They have to play the Dolphins. They have to play the 49ers. So this is a time now where the Browns, if they could just get this win, everything is in front of them. I expect the Ravens to kind of fall back with that buzzsaw of a schedule that they still have to face. So, Cole, it's right there for them. If they're going to take it, time will tell. But this could be the biggest win coming up here in Cleveland history since 1999, with the exception of that playoff win, ironically, also against Pittsburgh. It could light this town on fire. If they lose, I don't even know if I want to wake up Monday morning to put on sports radio because it's going to be hideous.
You know, I want to give the guys some credit as well. Jerron Christian, the left tackle, standing in. just got to add to the team and played well at left tackle. James Hudson, he wasn't perfect either, but he was the guy who did what he needed to do. And I loved his energy, his intensity. He was that first guy in that push there of Ford. And then everybody else got behind and were part of that and just kept pushing him forward. What a huge play there for Cleveland. And then Hudson celebrating in open field after. I mean, that was how Cleveland felt. His emotion, he's wearing it on his sleeve. And that was a moment where it just felt like this game is going the way of the Browns. They have to win this game by what's happening here right now. So credit to them. Credit to Deshaun Watson. By the way, passer rating wise, I saw this stat earlier today, not too long ago before doing this show. Passer rating, he's 21st in the NFL. But fourth quarter rating, in the fourth quarter, did you know he actually is the highest passer rating of anybody in the NFL right now in the fourth quarter? Deshaun Watson is the best quarterback statistically in the fourth quarter of everybody in the NFL right now, and CJ Stroud is number 2.
I'm shocked by that.
In crunch time, when you need Watson to be great and get things done and help you win a game, he's doing what he needs to do. Not only throwing the ball, he was perfect in that later stretch there of that game. I think he went 14 of 14. He did a really good job. He was running on that bum ankle as well, doing what he needed to do. And that one run he had to get to really field goal range made it feel like, okay, the Browns have a really good shot. And of course, we know that run that I was talking about then came after that, the one that Watson had. So the thing is, he's doing what he needs to do in the fourth quarter. Statistically, is he putting up incredible numbers? Is he putting up Houston numbers? No, but he doesn't need to. The thing is, in Houston, is even though they were a decent defense, offensively, they couldn't run the ball because they had such a bad offensive line when he was there. He was running for his life, scrambling to get out of the pocket, make things happen, and he was just throwing bombs down the field, right? He's putting up big stats because he's passing there in the dome. For Cleveland, they have a ground game that Houston never had for him. They have a defense that's better than any of the defenses that Watson had there. So honestly, they can control the time of possession, which they've done this year. And as long as he just makes 1 or 2 plays here and there at times when it's needed, it's been enough to win games. So ultimately, props to him for doing what he needs to do to help the team win. He's made some mistakes, hasn't been perfect. But again, no quarterback in the NFL has been perfect this year. We've been talking about guys who just haven't looked quite the same. Josh Allen's made more mistakes this year. Patrick Mahomes has made more mistakes this year. I could run down the list. And quarterbacks that we typically say are really good, they've had their stretches of struggles. They've had their down moments. So ultimately, I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I think the trend is still going up for Watson. He's had a couple good games. Let's see if he can string it together.
Excited for Sunday, Cole.
Yeah, I'm excited. Could be a really huge one for the Browns. And it's not a must-win, but in a way, it feels like a must-win. You can't lose both games to the Steelers this year. You should have lost the first one. You could have easily won that game, should have won that game. But now you have an opportunity to bounce back here against the team that, like I said, that you really, really want to beat. So be huge to at least split the series with them this year. Any final thoughts for you, Vince?
No, not at all. We got a big weekend coming up. St. Ed's versus Medina. You and I will be there. Make sure to check out the full recap right here on KeonSports.com. And also, we have games covered all over the state. And once again, this is just this year's staff. Incredible that this late in the year, we still have so many guys going out and stringing for us every single weekend. So full slate once again. Excited for it.
1 week away from Thanksgiving as you're watching this episode. And just enjoy this upcoming weekend of all the football action. Things that we had talked about, college football, high school football as well. For myself, Cole McDaniel, Vince McKee, we'll sign off, and we'll be back with you here next week.
Climatech is a full-service company. We install as well as service
both residential and commercial products.
We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water.
We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation.
Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction.
When you hire Climatech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.